was asked not to talk about the reserves issue today, but considering the media coverage today and yesterday, I really do have to respond to clearly state our position, I think, and right a lot of the misconceptions that appear to be out there. But the main reason I was going to focus on, and still will today, is to give you a bit of an update on what's happened to the Port Adelaide Football Club from last October, when there were calls for us to be excluded from the league, up until today, where we find ourselves in the top 8. As Gerard Wakely and Gerard Healy have said over the last couple of weeks, Port Adelaide is the good news football story of the year, and we've been very focused in what we've wanted to achieve over the last 9-10 months or so, and it's been built on a couple of pillars. It's really interesting. When I first took the job, there was a fair bit of criticism. How can you be chairman from Sydney, and it's an Adelaide club, and how do you build relevance, and football's different to a normal business. Well, 9 or 10 months later, I'm even more convinced than I was than when I took the job. We built a new football club board since October last year, comprising a broad range of skill sets and areas of expertise. Now, this was an independent study commissioned by the previous board on how to renew the board. And there was a very clear recommendation from that independent review that the skill set and the location of directors had to be a lot wider. As a result, Ross Haslam has joined us, Koch who's the chief executive of Maguire Media, Eddie's private media company. George Fiacci has joined us, former 7-time Premiership Port Adelaide champion, and Amanda Vanstone, the former Senator for South Australia, has joined us as well, and added enormous networking and intellectual depth. Although her first board meeting was quite unusual, because Amanda came into the first board meeting with one of those, shopping trolleys on wheels, the ladies' shopping trolley, and she wandered in, and I thought, what on earth is going on here? And she wandered in, first board meeting, and just parked it in the corner. And so we sat down, and I opened the board meeting and officially welcomed her, and she said, I've got a present for you all. So she ambled over to this shopping trolley, pulled out a slab of the 2004 Premiership West End beer, slammed it on the board table, and said, shit, it's getting stale. So, and true story. She's fantastic. She's been in Italy the last couple of games when we played, particularly the Swans. I'm getting text messages from her. She's watching it over there, saying things like, I'm about to throw up, I'm so nervous. What's happening? I want to be back there. She is so passionate about the club, but brings a real new dimension to it. It is a board which is disciplined, it's focused and committed, and we're there to support our Chief Executive, Keith Thomas, who is doing an outstanding job. He has even won over my relatives, even though they still refer to him as that Norwood bloke. But so he's doing something right. We've also established business advisory boards in Sydney and Melbourne. My dad is a Port Adelaide business expat. He was transferred to the eastern states when I was younger. We all moved over with him. There's such a legion of those sorts of people there, and we're losing connection to the club. So we've set up these advisory boards. I look after one in Sydney, Koch looks after the one in Melbourne. And we've got, the boss of JP Morgan, the boss of News Limited, Archer Capital, Lanyon Investments, all in really significant positions to help us build our commercial relevance interstate, and that's been really important. It has been important to show that we can play on a bigger stage, and we're growing our brand and doing it nationally. It was evidenced by Renault, our Renault launch earlier this year, which we deliberately did at the MCG, basically to wave to the Victorian media to say, hey, we're here as well. You can concentrate on us. You know, we're doing good things in football. We are part of the AFL as well. We recently had our first ever Port Adelaide business lunch in Sydney at the Ivy Ballroom. My brother came along. Ivy Ballroom is one of these fairly trendy establishments with chandeliers and candles and acoustic guitar. And my brother said, you just better remind people that yes, they are at a Port Adelaide function. But 270 corporates, business corporates, came to that lunch, including the Premier Barry O'Farrell, who was kind enough to stay until 2:30 and enjoyed the whole proceedings. That's all part of it. We try to expand our presence in the national media as well, doing things innovatively. Went to Fox Footy early in the season and said, you give us your dream list of what you would love a club to do to help your coverage. And I said, oh, what suggestions have you got? And we had a couple. And I said, but you come to us, think about it all. And that's what generated the round one coverage, where we had David King in the commentary, the commentator David King in our coach's box. We had some of our trainers with the head cameras, and that did an enormous amount for us in terms of building the bridge with the Victorian media, football media, who basically control the national AFL media. Travis Boak was on Foxtel's AFL 360 last night promoting the game this weekend. So we tried to win influential media friends, particularly in Victoria. And also the recruitment of Ken Hinkley as senior coach, along with Alan Richardson as coaching director, and high performance manager Darren Burgess. What an incredible change these three blokes have brought to the culture of Port Adelaide. There's the old business saying, the culture will eat strategy any day. Well, these three guys actually prove that. You know, Darren Burgess, for example, high performance coach. They have a bit of a bad name at the moment because of some things other high performance coaches have done in other clubs. Our bloke receives his PhD about 2 months ago, that he'd been studying in the UK and here with. You know, a big pillar of us going forward is to attract quality people. And world-class quality people in the business of sport. So, as a result of all of that, what's happened? Well, as of yesterday, not that I keep count and measure it to budget, we've got record membership of 40,860. That's up 15% on last year. Attendances are up 34% on last year. Television viewing audiences are up about 35% on Fox Footy. Which is terrific. So if you're looking for a great AFL sponsorship, come and talk to me after. You know, we're value for money. Corporate sales are up 10% on last year. And most importantly, we're currently sitting in the top 8 and playing a pretty exciting brand of footy, which is resonating with our supporters and even neutral supporters, because they understand we will never, ever give up. It's a really simple premise that we came up with at the start of the year. And Keith and I sat down with Ken Hinkley and said, look, you know, our brand is tarnished over the last couple of years. People don't believe what we say. We've got to give them, we can't promise the earth, but we've got to deliver a promise. We've got to deliver one promise that will build confidence. And we came up with, we will never ever give up. And Hinkley said, well, that's my style of coaching anyhow, and I can guarantee I can deliver on that. And he did that in the membership ad in the pre-season. It was nothing fancy. We didn't have the money to do a fancy one. I actually wrote the ad myself, and Ken got up and did it. But it was a very, very simple message to the Port Adelaide heartland to say, hey, you can be proud of us. In the future, we're going to play the Port Adelaide way. So it's been an exciting period of building relevance. But more importantly, it's about building momentum. Why? Because we've got to be in the best possible shape as we head to the new era at Adelaide Oval. For us, it's like going home to our traditional roots, the scene of so many great SANFL premierships. But for the Adelaide Oval model to work, we've got to achieve some pretty big hurdles to get over. We've got to attract another 10,000 members on top of our record number this year. We've got to have average game crowds of over 30,000 to every game, and we've got to increase our corporate sales by 3 million a year. We have to be running into Adelaide Oval. We can't be ambling, we can't be staggering. We've got to have momentum going forward. How are we doing that? Obviously the coaching structure is helping. We invested really heavily in Darren Burgess, world-class performance professional. If you don't know his background, Socceroos, so back with us in the premiership year with Treaders, got us fit to go to a premiership, then went to the Socceroos. The last couple of years at Liverpool FC in the English Premier League. I'm not a big Stephen Gerrard is the captain of Liverpool. Still sends every morning his stats to Darren Burgess here in Australia, so he can look over heart rate, blood pressure, all that sort of stuff. The bloke is a genius and is world quality. So that's been important.